Hello guys, warm and welcome. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to On Level Ground, where we simply, sincerely and frankly speak about the Word of God, share our faith and speak our hearts. So here I am again for part 2 of the last video that I did, talking about the waiting season. So I had written down some things that I talked about. I talked about 3 points in the last video. If you haven't watched that, then go and watch that. In that video, I spoke about 3 points, which were emotions are to be processed and not dismissed. I spoke about the fact that we were not created to be unfulfilled while a desire is not yet fulfilled. And I spoke about the point, another bullet point saying that be expectant but don't have expectations. So those were the 3 things I spoke about in the last video. And I felt like there were 2 points that I just thought were necessary and important to mention and speak about as well, which are what I'm going to speak about in this video. So one of the things I wrote about what I've learned in the waiting season is that you really cannot allow the promise to become an idol. And I know I have watched other videos in this past 3 years of waiting myself. I have watched so many videos about the waiting season. Well, many. Yeah, I've definitely watched a few videos about the waiting season, how other, perceive it, what you learn from it, what you can take, what you're supposed to take away from it, right? And this idol thing always comes up. It's always a topic, but it's really, really important to mention. And it's something I definitely had to learn. It really ties into the point that I spoke about in the last video, talking about we were not created to be unfulfilled while a desire is not yet fulfilled. Because if it is that we were unfulfilled while a particular desire is not yet fulfilled, then that desire is all that we are, which exalts the promise in a way that it shouldn't be exalted. And I think that's just the issue with an idol. You exalt the promise beyond where it's supposed to be. It can even come to the point where you exalt the promise beyond the promise keeper. And I think that's the most evil way of, that's the most evil way to process the waiting season. And I say evil because it really does not allow God to be God anymore in your life. So it's not necessarily evil because of your motives, because your motives, most of the people who create an idol, most of the people who allow the promise to ascend to a point where it becomes an idol don't have bad motives. So I really don't want you to condemn yourself if that has happened to you, or if that is right now where you are. Don't condemn yourself. It really is within the weakness of our humanity to allow promises to ascend to that point. It is within the weakness of our humanity. That is why we have to draw near to God and allow Him to do the pruning process during the waiting season, as well as He, knows it to do. He will point towards it, and He will purge that out of you if you allow Him and if you agree to it. Because oftentimes when something becomes an idol, we walk in pride, and pride is one of the hardest things to break. So it's really, really hard to admit that something has become an idol, because in your pride now you have a new perception, and that perception is a perception of this deception. And in that deception, it's hard to admit that you are wrong. It's just really a hard place to be in. So it can feel like while even breaking an idol, the process of breaking an idol can be so harsh. It can feel so harsh. But it's so necessary, because this lie has created a deception and pride within you, and that has to be broken, which is really hard. Anyways, don't let the promise become an idol. As I've spoken about just now, the idol can be exalted above where it should be. And I think the highest point to which it can be exalted, and the most wicked place, the most wicked way in which a promise can become an idol, is by allowing the promise to ascend above the promise keeper. I don't know why it is that in our humanity we are wired to really focus in and just concentrate on the promise. I thought about it recently, and I felt like one of the reasons definitely is that in our society and in this world that we live in right now, we are taught to satisfy the desires we have immediately. So if you notice you have a desire for whatever, whether it's just food or, to do certain, to stand on a stage and speak, or to have kids, or, anything, whatever it is that you have a desire for, our world teaches us that we have the liberty to fulfill that desire immediately, not teaching us that maybe to even sustain that desire, to sustain that promise, you would need to have a certain type of character. And that is how it comes that, you meet people who are in a great position, people who have had obvious success in the world, and you meet them and their character is absolutely stinks. Like, it's awful. It's awful because they didn't believe that a character was necessary. Developing good character and morals and integrity was necessary to sustain the promise. They believe in their pride that the promise is theirs because they have the liberty to just take it and own it whenever they want to. So even doing that, I really think it stems from pride, that we are conditioned to believe that we can satisfy the desires by ourselves that we have. Fulfill the promises, let's say fulfill the desire that we have instantly by ourselves, and then sustain it with whatever character. We have the freedom to sustain it with whatever character that we have. So the Lord really wants to change that. He wants to change our hearts and our thinkings in that. He wants to renew our mind in that, to understand that, no, I need to teach you humility first. I need you to understand that this promise has to be fulfilled within my will. I need to understand that I need you to understand that I am God, and that for you to be sustained, for you not to lose your life spiritually, for you to have happiness, I need you to walk through this waiting season to become the person that you need to be to walk into this promise. All I'm saying with this is be careful. It is in our humanity, it is in the weakness of our humanity to allow promises to ascend higher than they should be, and to even allow everything in our lives to be centered around this promise. And even that is so sad. Which leads me to the next point, which is there is no such thing as the waiting. And I say that, I probably will call this video something around the waiting season, because that is the Christian lingo that we use. And when many people see that title, they will understand what I'm about to talk about. But I said in the last video, I don't like calling the waiting season, because there is no such thing as waiting. Waiting means everything in your life will be set up in a way that expects that particular promise. That means you will not even, your whole perception changes, your posture changes. Your posture is oriented towards the promise, which makes you blind to other things that are supposed to be in your life simultaneously, like in line, in this waiting season, things that are supposed to happen on the way might not come to pass in that way because you are just focused on the promise. And that's not what he wants us to do. And I think that's why the waiting is so hard, because even sometimes that term can be misleading, teaching us that we need to wait. But actually, he doesn't want us to wait. He wants us to live. He wants us to live knowing that the promise will add to our life, because it is not our life. And I said in the last video, the promise is not your life. The desire is not all that you are, but it will add to you as you are developing in this waiting season, as you are developing in this season up until the promise comes to pass or it comes into manifestation physically. You are called to be you in that time. You are called to build a life. You are called to live out all that God has put in you in that time, without having your focus on that. Because if you even have your focus on that, then automatically every decision that you make, you will have that in mind, right? You'll have that in mind. Oh, the promise is this and that. So I make my decisions so that it could maybe have the capacity and the room to take in the promise. But your life as you walk it out, will create capacity and room in itself for the promise when it comes. But if you start altering your decision, if you start making decisions with the promise in mind, then you start to be led by the promise instead of by God. And Romans 8:13 says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. You really have to submit yourself fully and solely to the Spirit. It is the Spirit only that can lead you. Fear cannot lead you. The promise cannot lead you. The promise and fear and anything, another person, whoever, it cannot be the reason why you make decisions the way you make them. You have to allow the Holy Spirit to be the only thing in your life that leads you. And wisdom, let wisdom guide you, of course. Let wise counsel guide you. Let the people that you love around you be wise counsel to you. But first and foremost, it is God that is leading you, not the promise. And if we condition ourselves to really think that this is a waiting season, then the promise will become something that starts leading you in life, and that will not force you, but it will make you make decisions in a different way to create capacity for the promise, not understanding that your life itself will create room and capacity for the promise that the Lord will bring to your life. So yeah, those are the only two things I wanted to speak about in this video. Those are the only two things I found important to mention as well. So yeah, this is part 2, guys. I hope this helped you. Thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.